If you're an entrepreneur who loves building, creating, and solving problems, but feels uncomfortable when it comes time to sell, you're not alone. For many entrepreneurs, sales is not just a skill gap, it's an emotional one. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to The Reluctant Entrepreneur. Today's guest, John Lester, helps entrepreneurs and sales professionals rethink everything they believe about selling. Through his work at Attitude Selling, John focuses less on scripts, tactics, and pressure, and more on mindset, psychology, and the beliefs that quietly shape how we show up in sales conversations. In this episode, we talk about why so many entrepreneurs struggle with sales, where that discomfort really comes from, and how shifting your mindset can completely change the way selling feels. We'll also dig into John's own entrepreneurial journey and the beliefs he had to unlearn along the way. If you've ever avoided a sales call, delayed a follow-up, or felt conflicted about selling something you truly believe in, this conversation is for you. Let's get started. John Lester, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Mike, thank you for having me. I am too. I've been thinking about this, and we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I think I was born a salesperson, right? Every job, before I got my, big boy job in the industry I'm in now, 41 years ago, geez, I was always in sales, one form or another. I sold, you name it, I sold it. I used to work for, here's a blast from the past, Montgomery Ward.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I worked in their garden shop, straight commission draw, which means you work for free. If you made if they had to pay you minimum wage, so they would pay minimum wage, but if my commissions did not equal that minimum wage, I would owe them money. So the moment I had a good week, I had to pay it all back. So basically it was straight loophole, but a straight commission. 6%. And I worked in the garden department. So I sold lawnmowers, chainsaws, storage buildings, small tractors, goldfish, hamsters, and steer manure were all part of the job.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's
the way they did it today would be illegal today. They'd be shut down. But
exactly.
That was the day back then. And I made bank. I was making $500 or $600 a week. And this is in the late 70s, early 80s, which was amazing. But I only made that during the spring because it's the garden shop. In the wintertime or in the fall, and even through part of the summer, I struggled. So it was a question of, squirreling my money away, or it should have been a question of squirreling my money away. But of course I was young, so I spent it as I got it, and then I suffered, in the dry season. But I digress. I think sales rules the world. And I think there's a horrible combination when a person who has only experienced sales type jobs decides to start a business. And that is a bit of a dangerous combination, a little different than your angle. You deal with people who don't want to be salespeople or feel uncomfortable with sales, which creates its own problems, which we're going to talk about. In my case, it was an opposite problem. I wanted to sell everything to everybody. And to me, it was the art of the close, and when you think like that, you tend to get a lot of non-profitable sales. But one thing I did learn, John, is the most profitable word in sales is often no. I think I would have made way more money had I just turned down certain opportunities to sell certain things at certain prices. But anyway, this is about you, not about me. Looking back, did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, or did entrepreneurship find you along the way?
Let's just say that events changed my life. I never had an interest in being an entrepreneur. I mean, I had fleeting moments of, wow, I could do this or I could do that, but I was wed to the corporate track. I always have been. And for all of the people out there that will bash the corporate track and talk about, oh, you can't work for the man and all this other kind of, excuse my French, nonsense that they put out there. I live in arguably one of the top 100 communities in the United States. I really do. It's amazing that they let me in this place, but when you have the money, you can. Um, we've done very well, and it's like, okay, so why are you bashing it? So no, I never. In fact, let's go back to your comment before. I went to a Catholic grammar school. And of course, when you go to a Catholic grammar school, especially run by the nuns, and I hope I'm not offending too many Catholics out there, but hey, this is reality. One of the things you were coerced to do was to sell chocolate every year. I don't remember if it was Christmas or whatever.
Yeah.
And who can sell the most chocolate bars? I hated it. I couldn't figure out how to sell to save my life. I just was scared to death knocking on doors, and this continued. So I never thought of myself as a salesperson. And one other thing that came up, and this is going to play into what I'm going to talk about in a little while. My father was a salesman. He was a very good salesman. However, whenever we had an application of any sort to fill out about mother's occupation, housewife, father's occupation, he said, my mother, okay, what we didn't put down? Well, you can't put salesperson. You can't put salesperson. Salespeople are sleazy.
Right.
That's a nice way. That's just a nice way to talk about dad. He's a business executive.
There you go.
So, and this is at a young age. So ingrained in the back of my brain and my subconscious is, oh no, you don't want to be associated with sales. And then trying to go to the candy trip, sell the candy, that just reinforced it. Anybody that came to the door that was quote unquote selling, and back then you had a bunch of people. You had, I was talking to my wife about this, she doesn't remember this, you had the milkman that dropped milk off in your front door. You had the guy that came around with vegetables, depending upon the community you lived in. We had Jimmy the fish man that came in on Fridays because he went down to the boats and he got the fish and would sell it door to door. So you had the exposure to salespeople and early on built up a reluctant feeling about what they did. So I never wanted to be in it. Now I fell into sales, couldn't stand it in the beginning. And it was only when I started to say, wait a minute, what can I like out of this and how can I get really good at it? And that took a few bumps and bruises. But yeah, to start off, no, I never wanted to be in it and I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Because quite frankly, when you're at the top of the leaderboard in a large corporation and they're relying on your revenue stream from year to year, you get treated like gold.
Yeah.
So first class flights all the time. Four Seasons hotels for club trip. No questions on your expenses. And I'm not suggesting it's necessarily like that today, but that's what I experienced. So no, I did not want to leave that world.
Yeah. You brought up an interesting point. When I'm in the electronic manufacturing world, that's the career I have. We build equipment for the electronics manufacturing industry. And I remember when I first got into this space in 1985, we had sales reps, manufacturers reps that represented us throughout the country. And I would travel out and do windshield time. We called it windshield time with them, where we would just travel for days and with or without appointments. And back in those days, and up until just maybe a decade ago or so, you walk in the front door, there's a receptionist. They bring a box of See's candies to the receptionist and talk about her kids, and they know, hey Maud, how are you? And how the kids and all that. And then they kind of walk down the hallway and they just pop their head into offices. Hey Bob, hey Sally, hey whatever. And then we sit down and bring out the line card, and I'm the principal, so okay, I have to do my talking. And then we go to the next place. Today, John, I don't think this is unique to the electronics manufacturing industry. There is no visitor lobby anymore. No. The door requires a key card to even enter it. And if they have an open lobby, which is very rare, you are not getting past the main door. Everything's controlled access now. And if you're lucky, they have a very small conference room off the lobby where people can come out and meet with you. But that is strictly by appointment.
Correct.
Now try and get an appointment. No one answers their phones. It all goes to voicemail. they no longer have receptionists, that are the guardian at the gate, but they just, the receptionists now, their guard at the gate now is just don't answer the phone. So there
Right.
is, in my industry, there is no such thing as cold calling anymore because there's no one to call on, right?
Right.
They are untouchable. So I think what I'm more interested now in, I don't run my company anymore. My team runs the company. They pay me to stay away, which has a lot of ROI attached to that.
It's a good deal.
It's a great deal for them, especially, and for me.
Yeah.
But I focus more on marketing and creating the environment where people reach out to us. We never reach out to anyone that blindly. And once someone reaches out to us, and definitely the art of sales, kicks in. We can't
Correct.
ignore that. It just doesn't start today anymore, at least in my world. It doesn't start with a cold call anymore, which,
Right. Right.
as great of a salesperson as I think I am, I totally suck at cold calling. I hate the concept of cold calling. I just won't do it. And now I can't do it because of, all the situations have changed. But
Right.
even back
Yeah.
in the day, I avoided it at all costs because I just felt very uncomfortable. I felt very intrusive and slimy. I'll tell you, you made a comment about slimy, salespeople. Many, many years ago, we bought our first copier for the office. This is probably back
Right.
in 93, 94. And we bought a used one, of course. And they delivered it. It was refurbished. And the dealer delivered it, and it did not work. And
Okay.
the salesperson who was, showing us how to use it was, panicking. And he called the office, and their service manager showed up. His name was Joe. And Joe came in and just looked at me and went, I personally rebuilt this machine, Mike. Trust me, this is going to work. This is going to be the best machine that you've ever bought. I don't know what happened here, something in shipping. I don't know. I'm going to take care of it. And so he did. He got it working. And then he kind of looked around and he goes, the sales guy had already left. He goes, hey, Mike, you guys hiring? He goes, I'm a great service guy. I said, yeah, I think you are. But how about sales? And his answer, which made me want him even more, was, I don't want to be a sales guy. I'm like, how come? He goes, they're slimy. And I'm like, you are going to be the perfect sales guy. And I hired him. Well, I offered him on the spot a job as our sales manager. We were a brand new company. We hadn't had a sales manager at that point. And he was amazing for a lot of years.
Okay.
And
Right.
because he didn't consider himself a salesperson, because he didn't respect what the reputation of salespeople or his version of the reputation of salespeople were.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that, sales is a lot more than overcoming objections, getting the customer to say yes, closing the order. I think every one of my team members, from the guy in shipping to the guy in purchasing to the service people to the HR person. Well, maybe not so much the HR person because they're not customer facing, but the accounting person, the bookkeeper. I think they are also salespeople in many ways because they can
They are.
influence a person's decision. So that's why I'm looking forward to this conversation because I think this is beyond useful, even if you're not a quote unquote salesperson. But anyway, I digress. What was your relationship with sales early in your career before attitude selling existed? You mentioned you went from sales can be sleazy, the reputation, kind of by your mother. Don't tell anyone you work in sales. But what was your relationship with sales from a function standpoint before you started attitude selling?
So I was a bench technician. In fact, for the folks on the call that are listening, I was actually a bench tech out on Long Island during the Vietnam era, fixing aircraft instrumentation on the F-14 and F-16. So if that makes any sense. Went
Yeah.
from there into medical repair. And basically was told, you're responsible for everything in a hospital with the exception of x-ray and pneumatics. So every single piece of equipment in that hospital, I had to be able to repair. No training, no courses, no anything. So now I've got to figure out, how do I live in that life where If something goes wrong, you're going to get a call immediately because that's the end of the world for these people.
Right.
And from there, after doing that for a few years, said, yeah, this isn't fun anymore, and answered an ad again for another technician for a very small company. I went from New York to New Jersey. I moved there, was repairing these boards. I was not a good technician particularly. I understand circuit flow, but I'm not really that good because we were hunting circuits down to the component level back then.
Wow.
I wasn't great at it. Yeah, I wasn't great at it. And so my boss walks in one day. I think there was 6 of us in the company. We were a U.S. distributor for a Canadian company. And he walks in one day and basically says, I've got bad news and maybe good news. And I said, all right, Ted, go ahead. Let me know. He said, well, the bad news is that Canada has just severed our relationship and we're no longer a distributor for them, which means that we're responsible for ourselves. I said, well, okay, I don't know if that's bad news. He says, oh, no, that's not the bad news. The bad news is I don't need a repair guy if we don't have sales. So here's your options. Leave or become a salesperson.
He presented you with what I call the ugly waitress theory. And that is someone complains about their food and they hold the plate up to the head and they go, well, how does it look now? It was the better option.
So what was interesting about the scenario, and I know this is going to sound strange, since we were hunting component on cards back then, so we were hunting discrete resistors, transistors, diodes, etc., we had to carry around HP oscilloscopes, which weighed about 65 pounds and were the size of larger than a carry-on bag. And I was working in New York City territory, so I had to go into the subway with these things.
Ooh.
And I said, all right, I'm young now, but at 50 and 60, do I want to be, not even thinking, well, what technology would change, do I even want to be lugging this thing? And I didn't see myself in that role. I had developed and have always developed very good working relationships with my customers. So even though they were repair customers, maintenance customers to me, I still had very good relationships with them. So I'm thinking to myself, okay. And he says to me, oh, and you know the product better than anybody else. I said, all right, I'll give it a try. Well, the big mistake happened, which it shouldn't happen to anybody, so beware, folks, but it happened to me. I was successful immediately. Because now you think I know something.
Right.
I don't know nothing. So I did that for a while, continued to do that for a while, still always with those notions in my head, if I ever wanted to look at them, about salespeople are sleazy, so it's not a real profession, et cetera, et cetera. Did okay, didn't do great, did okay, went up to a Fortune 500 company, didn't do that well. This continued for a little while. And one day I said, you know what? I don't know anything about sales. Nobody's teaching me, because all the classes we would get sent to had nothing to do with actually selling. So I went and I took a Dale Carnegie course and said, oh, wow, there's a system to selling? I had no idea.
Was that How to Win Friends and Influence People? Was that Carnegie, or was that Zig Ziglar?
That was their sales. No, that Carnegie was How to Win Friends and Influence People, which
that
didn't break, by the way. This was the sales course. They had an actual sales course. I liked it so much I went back twice and did assistant teaching, just because at the time, they were running a good course. I don't know what they're doing today, but at the time they were running a good course. But I said, okay, there's a process for this. So over time, I would keep trying things and I would keep getting better. And then I was with one company, and I woke up one morning, was towards the end of the quarter, and I could not move. I couldn't physically move. And I said, well, I have to get to the bathroom. It took me 45 minutes to crawl 60 feet.
Yikes.
And I said, this is crazy. I said to my wife, this is nuts. You got to get me to a doctor. So she gets me to the doctor. He says, I have no idea what's wrong with you. He ran some blood. He found 5 or 6 markers, I can't remember exactly, that were something like 100 times off the mark. And he said, I don't know what is going on with you. You can give you some antibiotics. And I had to go back every single day for blood tests. My boss in the meantime at the time is calling me up. And I'm like, dude, I can't even see 5 feet. I mean, I was never in such bad shape. He said, yeah, but I need those deals for the end of the quarter. And this went on for a week. And finally it passed. And I'm laying in there saying, I don't understand, life shouldn't be like this. So why am I doing this? And the reason I said I was doing it was because I absolutely love technology. Because in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, technology was a fascinating place to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. Okay. I didn't care what aspect of it you were in, but just the changes that you could see. This video conferencing that we're doing right now, that's what we called it back then in the 90s. I was selling for $100,000 an endpoint.
Yeah.
An endpoint. So for you and I to have a conversation, it was $250,000. And it was just fun. And I said, okay, but that's not going to help me through this dilemma. So I have to rethink why I'm doing this, or I have to get out of it. And I said, okay, what do I like really the most? What I really like the most is helping a customer win. I said, fine. All my focus from now on is going to be understanding the customer and understanding how to make the customer win. Because the focus before was closing the quarter. The focus before was pushing the deal.
Yeah.
And I had some really good deals. I mean, I was an international account manager for one of the largest consumer goods manufacturers in the world. So I said, no, that has to change. And once that changed, things started to get better. And I just got better and better. And I started to learn, and I started to pick up on things, and I read a lot, and I just enjoyed customers. And it got to the point where I refused to ever be the number one salesperson, because that's the person everybody runs to at the end of the quarter and beats up.
Right. Right.
And the one thing
you
I
have
know
to
was,
save them quarter by quarter, month by month, week by week. You have to be the closer all the time, right?
yeah, well, I refused to. And I told these guys this. I said, my deals will close in the year. And if that's not good enough for you, then I'm not going to do it. Because I can't walk in and tell a Fortune 500 company, oh, you have to give me a purchase order because my boss needs it.
Right. Yeah.
And yet I broke the record for most consecutive president's clubs that that company had ever seen. And my customers knew that I was going to treat them properly.
Yeah.
So that continued. My tenure with corporate left as things started to change. And then COVID kind of hit. And that was the tail of my corporate career. And I'm sitting saying, okay, what is going on? What do I do? What am I going to do? And the thing that really threw me was that I was watching a lot of companies go down and go under, and a lot of small companies. The bigger ones, a lot of the bigger companies, if you think about it, they could weather the storm because they had cash reserves. And also because they are smarter, just because they can afford to be smarter, they were able to understand how to reposition themselves during COVID. The smaller companies, the mom and pops, were the ones that really took a beating.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've always been sensitive to is the effect of your work environment on your children. Because they don't understand why daddy's had a bad day. And we can't expect them to.
Or why daddy's not at the ball game watching him bat, right?
Exactly.
Cats in the cradle moment.
I looking at this and I'm going, okay, I got to help salespeople. And so I wrote the book. I wrote my book, came out in 22, beginning of 22, on winning the inner game of sales. And it's all about the psychology and the mindset a salesperson really has to have, the base level stuff, not the tactics, not the tricks, not to get them to say yes 16 times, not to walk in the door and go, oh, you went to U of Penn, I went to U of Penn, let's bond, let's report. That's, excuse me, but that's crap, every bit of it.
Yeah.
And I said, let me write the book and let me try to create a practice around helping the salespeople. And the reality I came to was that, and there's documentation around this, over 50% of the people that are in sales right now have no business being in sales and should be shot. Of the people that are in sales, approximately 1.5% to 3% are superstars. Everybody else is in the middle of the bell-shaped curve.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found was most of them didn't care to be good. When you think that, and I've heard two numbers on this, but I think they're both appropriate, that the annual earnings prior to the point of diminishing returns, in other words, if somebody earns X, they really don't have a super interest in going much beyond that.
Well, it's the old good is the enemy of great mentality.
Yeah.
Why risk
So,
the comfort of being good when, for the risk of being great, right?
right. So the number, interestingly enough, the two numbers I've read are 57,000 and 70,000. Now, a good salesperson in most industries should easily do six figures. Easily. And I've known people and worked with people that are doing 255, a million personal income. So after a while, I said, this is crazy. Where's the real problem? Well, the real problem is the business owners didn't understand how to generate revenue, how to have an aligned sales process, how to take a person from first instance of knowing about them all the way through the sales process to the implementation process to the point where they become a raving fan. So I live by the raving fan principle. There's a few other principles I live by. I said, how can I help them? And that's when I developed attitude selling. To say, hey, if I can do this, not only does that guy go home to and make his kid happy, but all of his salespeople do too. So that's my mission in life.
You talk about, you transitioned from closing the quarter, closing a period, getting a certain number of notches on your belt, so to speak. Was there a specific moment or experience that made you realize that mindset mattered more than traditional sales techniques? And what took you from, capture as many scalps as possible to just having wins for the customer? That's quite a transition.
Large account selling, where what I was selling at the time required, generally speaking, 17 different stakeholders that I had to work with, and I had to either get positive, pull up from negative, or keep neutral. So a lot of people think that selling is all about walking in and closing the one guy. That is not true anymore and hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah.
And large corporations are always hedging their bets for obvious reasons. So I would go in and I would have to do the IT guy, and I have to do the HR guy, and I have to do legal, and I would have to do procurement, and I would have to do the decision maker and the supporter. And I had, as I said, 15 to 17 people that I knew that I had identified. So now how do I work with them? And one of the things, I took a class, I remember, one of the things that just absolutely floored me, I took a course in organizational dynamics. And it was like, oh, this is so much fun. So I started playing games in meetings. I started doing, controlling meetings, watching who's doing what, setting the stage up so I didn't have to be involved as much. And I watched them play against each other. Mike, for me, it was so much fun. It still is today.
Yeah.
Because it's really watching people and understanding how people react.
It's human behavior in a corporate environment, right? But it's basic human behavior.
But it's basic human behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my take on sales is it's basic human behavior applied to a sales situation.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm not going to try to, take the place of a shrink, or I'm not going to try to take the place of a corporate trainer. I just want to talk to people about the sales side of it. Because if you get the sales side right, you can get a lot of the other stuff wrong, but at least it keeps the company afloat.
Right. It keeps you liquid long enough to fix the other things, right? But yeah, you could be the best run company in the world with the best product in the world. You don't have sales. You have nothing, right? It's an empty, hollow promise.
Just so people understand, and again, I'm not sure of your audience demographics, but there was a little company out there that lived by the notion that they would never have the best product, that they would never have the most leading edge product, they would never have the cheapest product. And you say, well, were they successful? Yeah, the name of the company was IBM.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. That's part of it is not surprising. Part of it is incredibly surprising. For them to say about themselves, they may not have the best product. I always thought their opinion of their products was no one else even matters. But I don't know IBM that well. I know the current IBM, which is a completely
It's
different
very
company
different.
now. Yeah, way
Completely
different.
different company.
But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
interesting. What were some of the biggest internal struggles you faced when you decided to build your own business?
I don't really think have been any. I mean, if I could convince my wife to sell the house and move to North Carolina or South Carolina, I wouldn't have to work another day. I'm not saying I'm rich. I'm saying the way we stack economics,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to. So I had a choice. What lifestyle do I want, and what do I get excited about? And working for a boss and having somebody, and I've worked for some pretty nasty bosses. We all have. I don't want to wake up in the morning and go do that. My boss now, because my wife leaves me alone. My boss now is two black cats.
Which,
One of them's
I don't know.
somewhere.
According to folklore, they're supposed to be unlucky. I guess in your case, they're not.
They're not. Yeah,
They're
that's
not.
folklore. It's not. So yeah, I wouldn't really say. The biggest issue to me is frustration because you don't really know what you're doing. When you work the corporate job, you're very narrowly defined, and you get to spend time and energy refining that narrow set of skills.
Yes.
So, as a large account sales guy, I think I prospected 5% of the time. I never did HR. I never did accounting. I barely did my expense reports
Right. Right.
because I'm selling. And now you get into your own business, and there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot to worry about that, quite frankly, is not fun. Because you got to wait to talk to clients to have your fun or whatever it is
Yeah.
that you want to do.
Oh, I'm right with you. I had the same experience. I was kind of born to sell, as I said earlier. That was in my
Right.
blood for some reason, and that was the fun part of my job. And my experience when I started a company was, there's 10 things I have to do today. One of them I love, selling,
Right. Right.
and designing. I'll give it two. So, and then there were 8 things that I hated to do, but I had to do because I bootstrapped the company. I started it in my garage. So,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
looking around, who can I assign? I'm the only one in the room. So,
That's right. That's right.
but yeah, I guess that's the hardest part of, or at least my journey, and it sounds like yours too, was having to do all the things that you didn't start a business to do, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, and when you don't like something, you're just not as good at it as you would be. Then, you taught yourself. You didn't know anything about repairing boards, back in the
No.
day, as you said,
No.
but you've
No.
always been fascinated with technology.
Yeah.
So therefore, you were good at it. You made yourself good at it. It was an easy progression to be good.
Actually, not. But that's a good
No.
point. Actually, not. What I was better at, and still am better at, was managing people's expectations.
Yes. Yes.
So
I,
there is. So let me just give you an example. A monitor went out in the ICU in one of my hospitals. I get a panic call at like 8 o'clock at night, screaming at me, which we did back then. People screamed at each other. Big deal. The monitor went out. The monitor went out. We don't know if the patient is dead or not. Now, I'm a bit of a wise ass. I said, just out of curiosity, nurse, did you happen to go over and see if he was breathing?
yeah. Right. Right.
Okay. Did you ever think of swapping out for another monitor? Because nobody has only the amount of monitors that they need. It's just not the way it works. So managing the relationship with the people, setting the proper expectation. Hey, if it's not serious, if it's okay, I'll be there in the morning. If it is serious, I'll definitely be here. And then stepping up and honoring your word. Calmed every single one of my hospitals in the New York tri-state area down except one. And I fired him.
There
I
you
said,
go.
I won't service you. Yeah.
That's the most profitable word in sales, as we talked about earlier. No, my favorite example of expectation setting, several years ago, there was an airline that's still in business today that for, I don't know, 8, 10 years in a row, had the number one satisfaction level for exceeding their customers' expectations. Which airline would you think did that?
Oh, they're still in existence today?
Yes.
No, because initially I would have said Braniff, but they're gone. It's probably at this. No, it's not. It's one of the smaller ones. I think it's Spirit.
Actually, it's Southwest. Now, this
Southwest.
was back like 20 years ago, and for like
Yeah.
10 years before that. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Delta, United, American, Braniff back in the day, TWA back in the day, Pan Am back in the day, they all had things like seat assignments and a first class section, and they would, have free alcohol if you were in a premium section, and all of that. How could little Southwest, who just had open seating, threw peanuts at you, and no frills, no business class, first class, premium class, they didn't have any of that. How can they exceed customer expectations over legacy carriers? Simple. The expectation when you flew Southwest was they'll probably get you there fairly on time. They probably won't kill you. And they'll try not to lose your bags. They generally don't lose bags. That was a low bar expectation. But because they were one of the the industry's first, discount carrier, the expectation for the consumer was exceptionally low. So they kept exceeding it, right? They didn't even have to do much to exceed it. They just had to not kill people, basically. And so you're right. I think that it's a question of managing expectations. If your expectation is low and you stick to it and you exceed it, that's what the customer remembers, right?
The interesting part of all of that is that, because a lot of what I'm seeing, and you're seeing it too, everybody's seeing it, is over the course of the past, I would say probably 30 months, the vast majority of the layoffs and reduction in workforce are occurring to white collar workers. And they're occurring primarily to, and I'm taking the federal government, the whole nonsense with the federal government layoffs, I'm taking that out of the picture. And they're happening to corporations, again, where the worker is siloed.
Yeah.
And people are coming out and they're not getting rehired. And the job opportunity right now is the worst it's been in a very long time. And so they say, hey, let me take my expertise in HR and engineering and in computer science or whatever the expertise is. Let me hang out my shingle. I just created this thing. I think it's great. Everybody's going to love it. And let me go out into the market and make it happen. Well, the problem with that whole premise is that, again, as we said before, if you don't have revenue, your business goes down. They were never, ever, ever trained to sell. So they don't understand what sales is. They don't understand that nobody buys product. People buy dreams. But they were never trained to speak about dreams. And when I track all of this back, remember I said couldn't stand selling the chocolate bars, right? 5-year-old kid walks in with his parents to a car dealership because they need a new car. They're looking around. The sleazy sales guy comes up and goes, hey, how are you? You're going to buy a car today? Because I need the business. By the way, that did happen to me. And the parents walk away. And the dad looks at the mom and goes, I hate these sleazy salespeople. What does the 5-year-old hear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what he hears.
And it doesn't resurface for 15 to 20 years, but it's been living in his subconscious. All right. So people have a negative mindset about selling themselves that they don't even realize exists. They don't have any clue as to what the person sitting across from them is about because they've never been trained to have that understanding. Unless they've been lucky and they've had some organizational dynamic stuff, but it's almost never been from the sales side. It's always been from the workforce management side. It's always been from the how do you get along with your coworkers side. They also then walk in and they're trying to sell a product. And people don't buy products.
No.
They buy dreams. But if you as a salesperson don't understand their dreams, why would they even want to sit and talk to you? And then one of the biggest problems I've seen in sales, and I've been watching sales training for 40-something years, is people can't I mean, you said you don't like to cold call. Well, the reason you don't like to cold call is because you don't really understand what you should be saying.
Yeah, totally.
And nobody trains you on that.
Right.
So what this all boils down to is that's what's missing in this whole equation and missing in sales training, because sales training is tactics, is creating understanding. Because if I get people to understand their own limitations, if I can get people to understand the buyer, if I get people to understand what value proposition really, really means, and if I get them to understand why you have a sales track, why you have a conversation track. And then the last piece is get them to understand that sales is really two humans talking about a problem.
Yeah.
Changes the game. Completely changed. I had a client because it shocked me so much. And I deal with some tech companies because that's my background. And this fellow is very, very bright, very good corporate credentials, very good IT credentials. He's over in Europe. He's probably in his 50s. He's been around. And he's got his own company doing some, I'm not going to say what it is, but doing some technical stuff. And I've been working with him. And after about 6 months into this, I said, hey, what's going on? What have you gotten out of this? So help me understand where I brought you value. And he's the CEO of the company. And he said, I realized that I did not know how to speak to a CEO. Here's the CEO of the company that does not understand how to converse with a peer. That's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And completely limiting to his revenue stream. Since we've been working together, his revenue is going up, his lead flow is going up.
Yeah.
So because they have limitations, COVID hit them, and COVID hit them hard. I don't ever want to see that happen again. There will be another COVID. It's not a question. But I like to see people succeed.
You mentioned that customers don't buy products. They fulfill a dream, something to that effect. I think we can expand on that too, that people don't look to become a customer. They look to join a tribe. And I'm talking about kind of a younger generation thing. When you think about certain companies, whether they're Nike or Apple, not Apple today, but Apple a few years ago, the people who will camp out 3 days before, put a tent in front of the Apple store just to get an iPhone that has 2 megapixels more than the prior model did, to be early adopters. They're not customers. They are part of the Apple tribe. They will wear their merch. People will wear Nike shirts. Well, Nike is not known for shirts. They're known for shoes. But they are known for their swoosh logo, and people want to be identified. They want to identify with that.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I think in addition to, when you say fulfilling a dream, I interpret that, at least in my world, my tech world, I view that as, we solve a problem. The machines we make for the electronics manufacturing industry don't make anything. You don't put raw materials in and a product comes out the other side. The machines we make increase the reliability of our customers' products when they run it through this process. It just makes their existing product way more reliable than it was. So in our case, the dream we are trying to fulfill is making sure their products don't come back to them, making sure they don't have RMAs, making sure they don't have recalls, making sure they don't have liability-based lawsuits and things like that. So, and that is a dream fulfilled, for them.
And I would challenge you on that. And this is where I think I'm very different. You have in every sales situation, including, with the exception of going to the supermarket and buying a chicken. And I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm saying it because I want to get really basic with this. You have two decisions that are being made by the quote unquote buyer. You have the business problem decision, which is what you just talked about. But they don't make the decision based on that. They have a personal need that they have to satisfy that 99.9% of the salespeople never even try to uncover. It might be a promotion. It might be safety. It might be they're tired of not being able to leave the office at 5 o'clock in the summer, so they might go in and get a couple of rounds of golf in or something like that. It might be they need the job because they're putting their mother into hospice. All of these are very, very real. All of these are the things that are going on in the buyer's life. What they are really, really looking for is they are looking for assurance that you understand them, that they can trust you, and that you're going to provide relief to their personal issue as well as to the business issue. The business issue, the business justification is what they use to management to say spend the money. The personal issue, the resolution of that, the understanding of that, the recognition of that is what they will use to make a determination whether they will do business with you or not. By the way, there's enough research to suggest that initial decision, we're not talking continuing customers, we're talking initial, that determination is made in the first 180 seconds of meeting them.
Wow. No pressure, John. No pressure. For the salesperson, no pressure at all. You got 180 seconds. You got 3 minutes to get this down.
But see, here's the interesting part, Mike. When you, at least from my perspective, when you can break the process down into multiple parts, then you can focus on each part as it happens. All right. And this is what has annoyed me so much about sales is because you would get interviewed for a sales job and the hiring manager would say, how good a closer are you?
Right.
And then the entire justification to hire you was on the close. I neglected all of that after that whole incident with the medical situation and said, I'm going to focus on the process.
Right.
And once I started focusing on the process, close came.
And the close
numbers away.
And the close isn't a trick move. It's not some magic formula. If you have the process down, the customer closes himself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I like this so much.
We talked about human behavior, which I find fascinating, scary and fascinating all at once.
But at the same time.
At the same time. How does fear of rejection or fear of judgment show up in sales conversations, even when people don't even realize it?
Well, because they don't realize it. Again, as I said, I like breaking this down to component level. If you understand that they're not rejecting you, unless you do something really dumb.
Right.
But they're not rejecting you. What they're saying to you is, hey, wait a minute, I don't have that 180-second trust thing built in yet. So I'm going to move on because I don't know if you, it's the reptilian brain. I don't know if you're going to eat me or kill me or whatever. So you know what? I'm going to back away.
Yeah.
They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the feeling that they have.
Right.
You haven't paid attention to the fact that I've got 400 things on my plate that were due yesterday. You're not paying attention to the fact that I just had 17 other salespeople in here.
Yeah.
And I give you a quick example. I was selling a technology years ago to really my market was the extremely large insurance companies, so the top tier insurance companies. And they came into the office when we would go to offices. I think I had 10 or 15 of these relatively senior executives in the room. And they looked like they could be anywhere else, including having, a wisdom tooth pulled rather than being with me.
That's preferable, right?
Yeah. And I said, hey, I understand. Is everybody here want to talk about interactive voice response, which was a customer service function? And they're like, yeah. I said, wow, that's a shame because I don't want to talk about it. And all of a sudden they're like,
you're one of us.
I said, I want to talk about what your absolute best customer service agent does on their absolute best day and replicate that for you 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and charge you 1/8 of the cost that you're paying that rep. You interested in that conversation?
Yeah, some eyes open there.
Yeah, but everybody else is like, oh, I want to tell you about the technology. Let me show you the boards. What, are you out of your mind? Nobody cares.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So we're starting to run out of time. So just a few more
Yeah.
questions. For an entrepreneur listening or watching right now who's avoiding sales activities for all the reasons we've talked about or more, what's the one mindset shift they can make immediately that will start the
That that
process?
they that people don't buy products, they buy dreams.
Yeah.
Make that one shift. And if you don't like that one, the other shift you can make is, hey, I'm not talking to a prospect, I'm talking to a human. We start seeing them as humans and not thems, things change drastically.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If you could give one piece of advice to an entrepreneur who knows sales matter, but feels uncomfortable doing it, what would it be? Would it be the
Call me.
same? Would it be,
No, call me. The process I've put together takes time. And it's virtually impossible to do it yourself. Because if you could do it yourself, you would have done it already.
right?
I mean, it took me 20 years to get to where I am from a thinking perspective. I can get it done in 6 weeks. So stop thinking that one, it's going to go away. Stop thinking that two, it's going to come through osmosis. Three, that you're going to do it yourself. Pick up the phone and call. So many of these solutions, Mike, are just so easy. We just don't do them.
Yeah, yeah, they're almost too obvious. Last
Yes.
question: how did you define success when you first started your business, or maybe younger in your career, versus how do you define it today?
Well, I would say younger in my career, when I was hitting the numbers, my success was the numbers. My
Yeah,
success was always to be, I never wanted to be number one. I wanted to be in the top 7%. That was one of the criteria of success. It evolved into I wanted to make my quota 2 months before the end of the period so that nobody would get on my case. Because trying to make you and I've had this happen, trying to close the deals at the end of the year and not being able to enjoy Christmas and New Year, that was the standard.
yeah,
That drove me out of my mind. So I got to the point where, I could close my objective in 10 months. And now nobody could bother me.
that's amazing. Attitude selling. Where did attitude come from? I mean, obviously, there's an obvious answer. This is all about attitude. Is there
This is all
any?
about attitude.
It's strictly what you see is what you get here. This is about changing your attitude to learn to sell.
If you and I think the best example that's been used with this, I mean, there's so many examples used with this, but if you remember the show Suits, because
Sure.
this is used in textbook studies. What was his name? Harvey, I think, was the main lawyer.
Harvey, yeah.
Yeah,
I forget
whatever.
his last name on the show. And the now Duchess of York, Meghan Markle,
Yeah, but
was on that show too.
I don't even.
You're not following that, yeah.
Yeah, but Harvey proved, and the reason I use it is because it's so much out there and it has been dissected a lot. But Harvey and so many other have proven that it is completely attitude that gets you to the point that you need to get to. If you look at, and I'm not trying to be political, but
Harvey
if you look at
Specter.
Donald
Sorry, it
Trump,
just came to me. Harvey
Specter.
Specter, yes.
Yeah, if you look at Donald Trump has made 99% of his success, however you want to define it, based on attitude. And that's what he is all about. And so most people, I think, fail at sales because they have a negative attitude in any of the four areas I just mentioned. And so what I said was, look, a lot in that 180 seconds, if you don't have the right attitude, the buyer is going to go, no, I can't deal with them. If you have the right buyer, the product doesn't make any difference. Because that's not what he's looking for. They're looking for the attitude.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, John, time is up. I really appreciate
Yes.
you being my guest. And for my audience, if you're on YouTube and you want to find out how to call John, that was his suggestion. Call me, he said. Look down here where it says see more, and information on how to get a hold of John will be there, including links to his website and links to his book. Is it just one book, John?
Currently one book, working on the second one.
Currently one book. So the currently one book will be, I'll put a link to it. Is it on Amazon? right now?
It's on Amazon. Yes.
Excellent. I'll put the link to the Amazon there, to Amazon for that book. Also, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, don't do it while you're driving. I don't want to lose any subscribers. When you get to your destination, look at your podcast app into the show notes, and all that information will be there as well. John Lester, Attitude Selling. Thanks for your positive attitude. Thanks for the attitude that you brought to the show and to my listeners and viewers. I really appreciate it, and I wish you continued success in,
Mike, thank you.
in doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Pleasure was all mine. Before I wrap up, here are some final thoughts. If there's one takeaway from this conversation, it's that most entrepreneurs don't struggle with sales because they lack skill, scripts, or tools. They struggle because of what they believe about selling. John did a great job of reframing sales, not as something manipulative or uncomfortable, but as a service. When your mindset is right, selling stops feeling like persuasion and starts feeling more like helping. That shift alone can remove a tremendous amount of pressure, especially for entrepreneurs who didn't start a business because they wanted to be salespeople. I also appreciated John's honesty about how deeply fear shows up in sales. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being perceived the wrong way. Those fears are not weaknesses. They're part of being human. The problem is when fear quietly runs the business without us realizing it. For anyone listening or watching who avoids sales conversations, delays follow-ups, or second guesses pricing, this episode is a reminder to look inward before looking for another tactic. Fix the belief first, and the behavior often fixes itself. Sales is not about convincing someone to do something they don't want to do. It's about creating clarity, trust, and alignment. When you approach it that way, selling not only becomes easier, but more authentic. As always, my hope is that this conversation helps you feel a little less alone in your entrepreneurial journey and a little more confident in taking the next uncomfortable step forward. Now, that's a wrap. Thanks for being part of our Reluctant Entrepreneur family. We have been exceptionally busy recording future episodes with fascinating guests, so be sure to subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. And one personal favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, consider giving us a like and subscribe. Those two simple clicks really help us expand our reach. If you're an entrepreneur or know of someone who would make a great guest, I'd love to hear from you. Visit reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com to apply or recommend a guest. And a shameless plug, if you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable. It's available in both paperback and Kindle on Amazon, and as an audiobook on both Audible and Amazon. Well, that's it for me. I'm out of time. Thanks again for listening or watching. Until next time, be unstoppable. I'll see you again soon.